If a lady walks in, we have to have Exodus over here. Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari. Can you get asked for a sheet? We're going to get you a sheet so you can read the words. Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parajikacharya Ashtotar Tadashishi Mada Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parajikacharya Ashtotar Tadashishi Mada Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavindra Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Oops. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamhadiriyed. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nar Narayan Rishi, the Supermost Human Being, unto Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 15th day of May 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Reading from 6th Canto, 12th chapter, text number 13. Okay. Ayu, Shri, Kirtir, Aishvaryam, Ashisha, Purushasya, Yaha, Pavanti, Evahi, Tatkale, Yatanichor, Viparyayaha, Ayushri Kirtir Aishvaryam, Ashisha Purushasya Yaha, Pavantevahi Tatkale, Yatanichor Viparyayaha, Ahu Shri Kirtir Aishvaryam, Ashisha Purushasya Yaha, Pavantevahi Tatkale, Yatanichor Viparyayaha, Ayuk Shri Kirtir Aishvaryam, Ashisha Purushasya Yaha, Pavantevahi Tatkale, Yatanichor Viparyayaha, Ayushri Kirtir Aishvaryam, Ashisha Purushasya Yaha, Pavantevahi Tatkale, Yatanichor Viparyayaha, Ayushri Kirtir Aishvaryam, Ashisha Purushasya Yaha, Pavantevahi Tatkale, Yatanichor Viparyayaha, Ayushri Kirtir Aishvaryam, Ashisha Purushasya Yaha, Pavantevahi Tatkale, Yatanichor Viparyayaha, Ayushri Kirtir Aishvaryam, Ashisha Purushasya Yaha, Pavantevahi Tatkale, Yatanichor Viparyayaha, Ayushri Kirtir Aishvaryam, Ashisha Purushasya Yaha, Pavantevahi Tatkale, Yatanichor Viparyayaha. One more. Ayushri Kirtir Aishvaryam, Ashisha Purushasya Yaha, Pavantevahi Tatkale, Yatanichor Viparyayaha. Ayuhu, longevity. Shri, opulence. Kirtihi, fame. Aishvaryam, power. Ashishaha, benedictions. Purushasya, of the living entity. Yaha, which. Bhavanti, arise. Eva, indeed. He, certainly. Tatkale, at that proper time. Yata, just as. Anichoho, of one not desiring. Viparyayaha, reverse conditions. Translation. So this is Vritrasura speaking to Indra, trying to encourage him to keep fighting. Just as a person not inclined to die must nonetheless give up his longevity, opulence, fame, and everything else at the time of death. So, at the appointed time of victory, one can gain all these when the Supreme Lord awards them by his mercy. Purport. It is not good to be falsely puffed up, saying that by one's own effort one has become opulent, learned, beautiful, and so on. All such good fortune is achieved through the mercy of the Lord. From another point of view, no one wants to die, and no one wants to be poor or ugly. Therefore, why does the living entity, against his will, receive such unwanted troubles? It is due to the mercy or chastisement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that one gains or loses everything material. No one is independent. Everyone is dependent on the mercy or chastisement of the Supreme Lord. There is a common saying in Bengal that the Lord has 10 hands. This means that he has control everywhere, in the 8 directions and up and down. If he wants to take everything away from us with his 10 hands, we cannot protect anything with our 2 hands. Similarly, if he wants to bestow benedictions upon us with his 10 hands, we cannot factually receive them all with our 2 hands. In other words, the benedictions exceed our ambitions. The conclusion is that even though we do not wish to be separated from our possessions, sometimes the Lord forcibly takes them from us. And sometimes he showers such benedictions upon us that we are unable to receive them all. Therefore, either in opulence or in distress, we are not independent. Everything is dependent on the sweet will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So in this regard, Prabhupada would often quote this verse, Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha ahankara vimudhatma kartaham idi manyate. That everything is being done by the material energy, the 3 modes of nature. Prakriti kriyamani, gunai, that's the 3 mode, karmani sarvasha. But those who are bewildered by the influence of false ego think that I am doing everything. Ahankara vimudhatma. Vimudhatma means completely bewildered. Kartaham iti manyate. So this sense of false agency is characteristic of the demons. We're in the middle of that 16th chapter now in the Gita class in the evening, and we've just started reading a few verses about the demons after the verses about the divine qualities. So one of the first verses is Asatyam apratishtam he jagadhahu anishwaram aparaspada sambhutam kimachit kama hoitaka. The demons think that there's no ultimate reality, asatyam, no foundation of the material world, or no ultimate controller. And that's Jagadha Ahu Anishwaram. It's not that they're agnostic. Agnostic means, I don't know. Could be, could not be, which is a fairly healthy position to be in, especially if you come in contact with the genuine knowledge, or a person in knowledge of the truth. But they're not agnostic. They know there's no Lord in control, and they declare it very boldly. Jagadahua means they say that Jagadahua Anishwaram, there's no ultimate controller for this universe. Then how did things come about? Just by chance. By attraction, repulsion, sex desire, magnetism, whatever. It's all accidental.
Is that atheistic then?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing. Atheist means that they are absolutely sure there's no God in control. So, how many times does Krishna, refute that in the Bhagavad Gita? Yes, he says Prakriti kriyamanani, everything's being done by nature. But just to think that nature is the ultimate controller is also ignorance. That's like the material scientists. It's all the intricacies of nature. We know something about it, but we're still discovering, but ultimately we'll get to the bottom of it. But what does Krishna say? Maya jakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetunayana konteya jagat viparivartate. Material energy is working under my direction. Maya jakshena means supervision. Prakriti, Maya jakshena prakriti gunas, what is it? Sacharacharam. Hetunan, this is the cause. In other words, as devotees of Krishna, as aspirants to go back to Godhead, we've entered into that realm governed by the first aphorism of the Vedanta Sutra, which is, who can give it to me? No, that's the second. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Now, being a human being, one should inquire into Brahman. All right, what's Brahman? Second verse. Janmad yasya yataha. That which is the source, which gives birth, is the source of everything that be. And not only the source of birth, but then there's the Adi. You know, Adi means etc. What comes after birth? Well, maintenance for a while, and then destruction. So birth, the maintenance and destruction, all of it is controlled by Brahman. But we know that it's just not impersonal Brahman. It's the Supreme Brahman, Krishna. And that's explained by the commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam, gave it away, on the Vedanta Sutra. What's the best commentary? Srimad Bhagavatam. That's why Lord Chaitanya neither wrote nor asked his followers to write a commentary on the Brahma Sutra or Vedanta Sutra, which every other sampradaya has. In other words, that's part of what it means to be an authorized sampradaya, to write a devotional Vaishnava understanding of Vedanta Sutra. There's other ways of understanding it. That's the whole thing with Mayavad. Shankaracharya wrote a commentary on Vedanta Sutra in which he comes to everything, the original cause is impersonal Brahman. And Krishna is a result, is a derivation derived from the Supreme Brahman. The ultimate reality is Supreme Brahman. No. That's probably so many purports refuting that. Right in the Bhagavad Gita, the first big purport refuting that is right in the second chapter. It's like, I think it's 2:12. Natvevaham jata nasam natvam me janadipa nacheva nabhavishya sarve vayamatakpara. Is where he says, never was a time that I did not exist, nor you. It's a festival of double negatives. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these things, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So that means that we've been individual persons forever. We never did not exist. And we will always exist as individuals. We're not what's that say, a chip off the old block? You know, we didn't derive from just a little piece of Brahman chipping off, you know. And then when we achieve perfection, we'll merge back in, and that'll be our perfection. No. We are eternally persons. Our perfection is resuming or reawakening our original relationship with that Supreme Brahman, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, with everything that personality means. Beautiful form, qualities, pastimes, personality, everything. So, but this idea of agency is the main confusion about that, and the insistence that there's no God in control is the main quality of the demons. And that's why when Krishna speaks in that 16th chapter, he's imitating the demons. You know, it's quite fascinating. He speaks like a demon. He says, Ishwaroham, because they say, Anishwaram. There's no big God in control. So who's the controller? I'm the controller. Hiranyakashipu worked really hard to prove it, right? He even had Narada Muni bound down to him. So powerful. Ishwaroham, aham bogi, siddhoham balavan sukhi. I am the supreme controller. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. No one is powerful. You study the lives of, our ideal demons. The example of demons we have, from Kamsa to Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, Ravana, all of these, they all have this sense that I'm the controller, and those who challenge my control, let me marshal my forces and annihilate them and prove it, right? So this is now in our personal life, in our practical life, we unfortunately, that demonic idea is all pervading. Even though there's supposedly so many Christians in America, although it's decreasing now, the younger generation is not so serious to attend church every Sunday, So the idea is, well, you can if you work hard and you do the right thing and you do you buy this and you learn about this and you learn this program and you get this app, then you can enjoy what you're not enjoying now. So it's your own agency. Let me just buy it or steal it and then I'll be able to enjoy more of these standard opulences, beauty and wealth and fame and control and all these different sense gratification. So really, the demons are in charge, although they pretend to be sometimes caring and so forth, and there are people who have some element of that. But the main thrust of the whole world is that we have to try to manipulate the material energy so that we can, some people are just surviving, so we can just eat, today. But then the guys who are in control, so we can get more and more money, and we can, get more and more land and more wealth and this and that. So this is the world we live in. Now, the paradox here is that Vritrasura is not really a demon. And it becomes very clear in this speech that he's giving here, that he's speaking just like a devotee. Right? What does he say here? When the Supreme Lord awards him by his mercy. This is not the words of a demon. This is not what Hiranyakashipu would say. Just a person not inclined to die must nonetheless give up his longevity, opulence, fame, and everything else at the time of death. Okay, what's that one-liner from the Bhagavad Gita, which Krishna says? At the time of death, he has to give everything up. Mrityu sarvaharaschaham. Krishna says in the 10th chapter. As death, I take everything away. Now Prabhupada says in the purport there, and he often speaks on this line, that everyone meets God when they die. The devotees are welcomed back into the spiritual world. There's Krishna as a representative. And the non-devotees, they meet him in the form of death. At that point, they're completely helpless. You can't hold on to it. Your body is, for one reason or another, not working anymore. But you're alive. I often say that, the most amazing thing about death, everyone goes through it, I guess human beings especially, is that when you die, when you find the body finally gives out, and you realize, hey, I'm not dead. Who are those guys? Oh my God! There's a wonderful. I saw this on Dandabats one time. Sachinandan Swami was having a Zoom. This is when everything was Zoomed, and he was having a Zoom meeting. It was somehow put on the Dandabats, and it was all about his near-death experience. How he went through some serious health crises several times. And he was telling how he had this operation, and it wasn't perfectly done or something, and it was excruciatingly painful. And he was, and then suddenly it wasn't painful. He was out of the body. His mind was out. And he was doing what, you read about these all the time. Back in the 80s, we started to read about this all the time, near-death experiences, where someone has a heart attack. I used to work in a hospital. I know they come and they do the electric thing, and there's the epinephrine, and there's all these standard things they do to try to revive the person. Well, at one point it's touch and go. They have the thing going, and it's not a straight line. Once it's a straight line, that's the end. But it's tachycardia. It's not. It's a problem. So what we learned then is that there's a certain number of those where the person comes back, he survives obviously, and then he can describe what was going on in the room. Even though, to all intents and purposes, he was unconscious. He or she was unconscious. How does that work? Because the soul is not killed at that time. Apparently, it's not the soul, it's the subtle body within the soul, which ultimately, if the body does die, that's what's going to carry it to the next body. We learned that in the 15th chapter. The subtle body does not die when the gross body dies. The mind, intelligence, and ego, all of those thoughts, desires, you're carrying your karma. That's how we transmigrate from each other. That's why this is a society for Krishna consciousness. That's such an essential part. To cultivate more and more the remembrance of Krishna, and not just the remembrance of Krishna, but our relationship with Krishna by serving his interests. By finding out what does he want to do, or how do we know? From the Shastra and from the spiritual master. You see the spiritual masters, there's also instructing gurus who you trust. The whole thing is faith. Yes, this is real. Why is it real? Because I see there's Prabhupada and then Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, all these towering intellects and realized souls, and here's the record of their life, and they were very detached and very blissful. And you believe that, Otherwise, you got to believe the lying of the material energy, which is trying to convince you that you're the body and you can enjoy, and here's your field of enjoyment, and why don't you work for it? But this knowledge is what Prabhupada came to give, and he was able to impress others, not just by the knowledge, but by the process. The class on Bhagavad Gita, preceded by wonderful kirtan, which gave everyone the sense of reality of the truth, and made you more receptive. Then another kirtan, and a delicious feast, and it's a transcendental. And so the faith is built, and if you start practicing on your own, then the realizations start to come. First realization is that I don't need that, that thing which is holding me back. Whether it's in those days, it was drugs, a lot of drugs, and then it's a struggle at first, obviously. But if you get the higher taste, if you do the process right, if you're really serious, then that higher taste gives you spiritual strength. What is that verse? Vishaya. Vishayavani vartante. Nirahara siddehina rasa bhajam asabhyasya param jishrana vartate. Very important verse for us to understand. Vishaya means the objects of the senses. I'm not going to remind you again how it's similar to the word visha, which means poison. Oh, I just did, but just remember that. Vishaya and visha, poison for the soul. So vishaya vinivartante. So what it means is that the objects of the senses, fall away from you if you renounce them. Vishaya nirahara, so it means you're not consuming them. Ahar means to eat, right? So all of the objects of the senses, you kind of consume them. Some beautiful thing or movie or something, you're consuming it with your eyes, your ears. So nirahara siddehina, for the embodied soul can give up the object of the senses. When he gives up the object of the senses, because he knows that particular object, whether it's drugs, alcohol, rich food, this person, whatever it may be, you want to renounce it, you're attached to it, but I'm going to give it up. I go to a place where everyone else is trying to give it up, and I'll get some strength, So he gives it up, but you don't really uproot the desire for it. It's still there. And in the proper circumstance, it comes out. Now, and then you engage again in it. And what's that process called? By Pariksit Maharaj at the beginning of the 6th canto. We read this fairly recently. A bathing of? Then elephant bathing. The elephant spends all this time in the forest, and obviously he gets very sweaty and he needs a bath. So he goes into the lake, and he's got that wonderful, built-in shower thing, and so he's clean. Comes back out. How's he going to dry off? There's no gumption. So he rolls on the ground. There he's dusty again. So the point is, you can't really overcome these ardent desires by a material means, by your own will. You need the higher power. You walk up the street, they probably still have it, the AA. I went up there one time, not because I'm an AA, but I was invited to go. And you need association of others, and you need to invoke the higher power. They invoke the higher power, but they're not non-sectarian, so they never name any god or anything like that. But that's what we do. We're invoking the higher power by chanting Hare Krishna, engaging in devotional service, and sometimes directly praying to Krishna. What is, Kunti pray? I mean, even the attachments for home and family can bring you back again to this material world, right? That's why there's in the Varnashram system, there's a time when you're supposed to renounce, Vanaprastha, and then sannyas, and like that. Renunciation and detachment is what human life is meant for. It can't be by the animals. The animals are working on instinct. Whatever they want, they go for it. And they don't get any karma for that. But with our superior intelligence, we're meant to inquire into the absolute truth and aspire for the absolute truth, and then engage in those processes that can give us attachment for the absolute truth and clear away all the anarthas in the heart. And in this age, as we've just been reading in the morning in Namamrita, the basic means is chanting the holy name, right? Kaling Sabhaji and Jaya, Kaling Sabhaji and Guna Gyasara Bhagana, Yatra Sankitane Naima Sarva Swarto Vilabhyate. This comes a few verses after the famous verse, Krishna Varnam Tvisha Krishnam, Sango Pangasta Parshadam, Yagyar Sankitana Praya, Yajanti Sumadasa, we should know this verse, or at least know of it. And that is a verse in the Bhagavatam that gives a description of the Yuga avatar for this age, namely Lord Chaitanya. So the Lord has come, and not in blackish color, in a golden color, he's Krishna Varnam, means he is always chanting Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Varna means syllable, or it also means like Varnashram Dharma. He belongs to the category of Krishna. He's not different from Krishna. He is Krishna. Saanga Upanga Astra Parshadam. So he's with his Angas, his immediate associates, like Lord Nityananda and so forth, intimate like Ramananda Roy and like that. And those who are a little less intimate, he's got a whole circle, Upa-Angas, and the Parshadas, his companions. And what's he doing? Yagya Sankana Prayaya, Yajanti Hisumedasa. Those who want to worship this avatar chiefly through the process of Sankirtan, the holy name. And then a few verses later, he says, this verse I quoted that probably is not so famous. Kaling Sabhajiyant Yarya, those who are Aryans, who really know the spiritual values of life, they worship this Kali Yuga. This Kali Yuga, which only comes once in a day of Brahma. We're very fortunate. It just came 500 years ago, you know. Otherwise, he waited another day of Brahma. It's very long. So worship this Kali. Sabhajiyant Guna Gya Sarabhaginaha. Because in this age, just by Sankirtan, one can attain all of one's sva-artas. This word sva-arta is very important. Arta simply means something of value. It often refers to money. You know, what is it? Dharma, arta, kama, moksha. You find arta. We should be very pious and perform our duties so we can get money, so we can enjoy sense gratification. You know, but that's not the goal of life, right? That's not real dharma. Dharma is meant for liberation. We learned that in the second chapter. But this is a common thing, the four goals of human life. But sva-arta means the goal or the most valuable thing for the soul. Sva is your real self. So what is the real value of the soul? Getting free from all of this confusion in the material world, imprisonment in the material body, birth, death, old age, and disease, and going back home, back to Godhead. So that can be achieved just by Sankirtan and everything that derives from the Sankirtan. Prabhupada started this movement with Sankirtan. He got a hold of the half of a bongo drum, and he was beating it for 3 hours out there in Tompkins Square Park. I used to live 2 blocks from Tompkins Square Park. Unfortunately, I came 2 years after Prabhupada was there. But still, I would see the devotees. By that time, they were established on 2nd Avenue, not in the first place, but there was another center up the street on 2nd Avenue that was a little larger. And then after that, they went to Brooklyn. And I would always be looking for some nice beats, because I was a flute player, believe it or not. And I would roam the streets of the Lower East Side looking for the jam a little bit. And I'd hear those nice beats, chink, chink, chink. Boom, the drum, they got it together. And I'd, geez, that's the Hare Krishnas, forget it. That's where I was at that time. But, so Prabhupada, he gave that process, Yatra Sankirtana Naiva. And that is the process of this age. That is the saving grace of this age. We read this morning, I think, a few verses back, a few days back, in the Namamrita. It's the beginning. They're giving like the most important verses about the holy name. Kalir dosha nide rajan. What does that mean, Amoga? Kalir dosha nide? Yeah, Kali Yuga is by nature an ocean of falls. Can we deny it? I mean, you have to. If you're sentient at all, you can see that. But it's Akstiyeko Mahadguna. There's one very good quality in this age. Kirtanadeva Krishnasya Mukta Sangha Parambriyate. By the congregational chanting of Krishna's holy name, Kirtanadeva Krishnasya Mukta Sangha. Now we're back to this idea of Sangha, which is central to our philosophy. Sangha means association, Sangha means attachment. 2 things. Because what you associate with, you get attached to. So, Mukta Sangha. You can be free from all of these material attachments. And when it's not in a vacuum, and in proportion to how much you become attached to Krishna. And everything related to Krishna's devotees, especially, Krishna's name, Krishna's form, qualities, pastimes, prasadam, everything related to Krishna. So Mukta Sangha and Parambrajait. You can go back to the spiritual world. Special dispensation for this age. So we should all take advantage of it. This is very incredible. We've already heard the prayers Vritrasura, right? So I can't resist that prayer. I missed that class, I think. I think Balaram had it. Aham hare tava paraika mula dasanudasa bhavatasmi bhuya manaksmaneta supadang manaksmaneta tupater gunangste gunita karma karoti kaya. So he said, may I again, not will I again, but may I again have the association of your pure devotees. Aham hare tava paraika mula, who are always fixed at your lotus feet. Dasanudasa, not just the association, but the position of the servant of those pure devotees. Bhavitasmi bhuya. Again, let it happen. Because by that association, I will always remember your pastimes. Monak smedeta supater. O Lord of my life, your qualities, your pastimes, everything. Gunita vak. And I will always chant about them. And I was always, with my senses, I will always do your work. And otherwise, I'll be resituated in devotion. So this is the best prayer. And we, even without, maybe in previous life we uttered that prayer, and that's why we, decided to take up Hare Krishna. But that is really the perfection. Even Lord Chaitanya, he says, I'm not, Naham vipro nachananapati napi vaisho nashudro Naham varni nachagriha no vanasto yateva Kintu projan akalapodamananda purnamita gopi batu padakamalayor Dasa anudasa. This dasa anudasa. So this is a expression of the great humility of the greatest devotees. They're not even thinking, oh, when can I serve you, Radha and Krishna? They're thinking, when can I serve the servants of those who are serving you intimately? That will be my perfection. This humility is a real ornament of all the greatest Vaishnavas. So Lord Chaitanya, here's what I'm not. I'm not a Brahmin. I'm not a Kshatriya, I'm not a Vaishya Shudra. I'm not a Grihastha. I'm not a Vanaprastha. I'm not a sannyasi, not a brahmachari. I'm simply the servant of the servant of Lord Krishna, who is an ocean, what is it? Akalapadamānandapurna, the ocean of the highest bliss. This is Lord Chaitanya's verse. So he's teaching us there how we should pray. We should pray that we can become really fixed in devotion, and that we can. It's a lesson because Vritrasura, of course, has a special case. We'll learn the backstory. But all of us, I often recount how when I first started my little, quest for enlightenment, maybe it was the journey of self-discovery. I forget, one of those two. I read the Bhagavad Gita. I read the Bhagavad Gita, a little penguin edition, very thin, just a translation. But I had no, sorry. I had no idea what to do after reading it. That famous question of Tamal Krishnamacharya, the professor of Eastern religion or whatever he was, have you read the Bhagavad Gita? Of course I've read the Bhagavad Gita. So what are you going to do? What am I going to do? What does that mean? It's a normative book. Normative means it's an instruction for your behavior, for your life, what you should do in your life. And but it can't be understood without the proper commentary. That's why Prabhupada, the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And he relied, for many of the ideas in that commentary on Bhagavate Vijayabhushan. It's a whole line. I'm sorry, it's a miracle I got this far. So Vritrasura is praying like that, and everything he's telling Indra now is to try to achieve that, but Indra has to kill him. So at a certain point he stops speaking, and then he attacks Indra again, right? So Indra will fight. And Indra, he's going to drop his thunderbolt, which is a very shameful thing on the battlefield. He doesn't want to pick it up again. He's ready to be killed. So Vritrasura has to convince him, no, pick it up. I think, is he doing that now? Anyway, so he picks it up, and then there's a fight. I forget the exact chronology, but Vitrasura throws his trident, and Indra is able to destroy it with that powerful thunderbolt, which is empowered by the bone, which has been constructed from the bones of the Dichi. So, but then Vitrasura hits Indra with his club, and I think Airavata, and he drops it. So now I'm dead. Kill me. But that's not what Vitrasura wants, so he has to convince him now to take it up again. And eventually, Indra will do that, cut off one arm, and then get swallowed up, and then cut his way out of the belly, because he's been empowered by the Narayan Kavacha. The Narayan Kavacha means he can't be killed, basically. So it's a very dramatic ending. And finally, he beheads Vitrasura over 1 year. That's how strong he was. And so Vitrasura wins. He's killed and he wins. He goes back to Godhead. And Indra, what did he do? He just killed a devotee who was a Brahmin. So he has to face all his you'll see the sinful reactions for that. But it's quite a remarkable thing, and there's so many instructions here, those prayers and this verse, that the ultimate controller, to be a devotee means that we feel at every moment that we're controlled by Krishna. That what we're doing now is for the pleasure of Krishna. I like this one verse by the Yogendras in 11th canto. Kayena vacha manasindriyava buddhyapmanava unisasabhavavat kadoti yadyat sakalam parasmai narayanayeti samarpayetam. That whatever you do with the body, with the voice, with the mind, the intelligence, everything else, one should feel, not artificially, but actually, that this is I'm doing this as an offering to Narayan, to Vishnu. In other words, at every moment, I'm walking from here to there. Well, I'm not just walking, aside. I'm doing this as a service for Krishna. Okay, it's prasadam time. Let me go on to some prasadam. I have to sustain the body. It's for making the body strong so I can do more service. In other words, you always remember Krishna in every activity, at every moment, and that you're actually doing everything, breathing and talking and moving for his pleasure. That's the pure devotee. And we saw it with Srila Prabhupada. He wouldn't just pick up a phone. You can see that it was an act of devotion, and he was going to speak on that phone about Krishna or encourage somebody or chastise somebody or whatever it was, In other words, at every moment, there's that feeling that you're in service to Krishna, remembrance of Krishna. So that's about all I can speak on this particular verse. If there are any questions, comments, disagreements, we have something from Dvijamani Prabhu.
It's a question about near-death experience. Correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that sometimes we face complexities of our karma, and then this near-death experience comes, and then we've been it's been decided whether we go on living or we transmigrate to another body. Is that a correct understanding or no?
I wouldn't want to speculate. It's all under the control of Krishna. Karmana daivanetana jantu dehopapattiye. Describing, I think, is it teaching of Kapila, or is that Prahlad? I think it's maybe Prahlad.
Prabhupada said about when someone is in a coma.
Yeah.
The Yamadeva is trying to figure out what to do with them.
There was this one guy. He was a general in Israel. I'm not going to name names. Get into trouble. They're always watching. But he was, he killed a lot of women and children over the years. When he was ready to die, he went into a coma. It lasted years. He was in a coma for years. Oh God, just a nightmare. And actually, I just read, sometimes in this coma, it may not be exactly what they describe as a regular coma, but you can't express anything, but you can hear and you're conscious. You're just lying there on the bed, and your body, but you can't say anything. You can't, relate to anyone. You're just living there and within your own thoughts and your own regrets. It's a nightmare. That's a real punishment. It's not always like that. No, a coma, sometimes you're really unconscious, and it usually lasts for a few days at most. Yeah, there's so much we don't know, about it. But the main structure that we have is that there is someone who's ultimately in control of all this, and it's Krishna. And if we could get the favor of Krishna or Krishna's devotees, especially his pure devotees, then we're going to go through some stuff, some suffering. There's no doubt about it. But it's all very auspicious in the end. We'll actually be, go back to Krishna or, some place in the material world to continue our pastimes. Actually, sometimes Prabhupada said that you go to the world where Krishna is appearing in this, and then you get further training in your specific service. But you're there with Krishna, like Vrindavan or somewhere. What's that? Apprenticeship. Go ahead, Tyler.
Thank you for a wonderful class. Your classes are so robust.
Hare Krishna.
I wish
That's a new one, robust. Tell me about the Vidya Krishna.
I wish I had I should be going to your Gita classes. Bhakti Bob, he said that Dravida is not an ordinary soul. He's a demigod that's spending a little bit of time on this loka to teach us shlokas in the higher philosophy before he moves on to his next course. So take advantage of his classes while you can.
Well, there's a special loka up there, called Shloka Loka. And that's where I hope to go.
Yeah, no, I think you came from it, probably. So as far as this shloka here, I don't want to belate the point, but there's a crux thing. It says, no one is independent. Everyone is dependent on the mercy or chastisement of the Supreme Lord. So Mani Bandhani, whenever he gets chastised by Maharaj, he's in bliss. So a lot of us, when we get chastised, they care, right? We're getting some good instruction. It doesn't feel good, but it's what we need. Yeah. So I was thinking about, this seems very parallel to something I read in Ecclesiastes, and this is my question for you, but we have to define the word mirth. It's
mirth, M-I-R-T?
M-I-R-T-H, which is gladness or merriment, especially when it's expressed by laughter. So it means pleasure or joy. And this thing always struck me in Ecclesiastes, where it says, it is better to go to a funeral than to a feast, for death is the destiny of every person, and the living should take this to heart. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting, for this is the end of everyone, and the living will lay it to heart. In the text after it says, it is better to go to the house of mourning than go to the house of feasting, for that is the end of all men, and the living will lay it to his heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by the sadness of the countenance the heart is made better. So chastisement can be merciful.
Yes.
It says that the Lord has so many hands, he can shower bliss upon you or destroy you, but you can't even accept everything he's offering. So how do we look at that? How do we look at chastisement or benedictions in terms of our advancement in Krishna consciousness, knowing that we can't even receive everything the Lord's trying to give to us?
Well, the idea is that it is very pertinent about chastisement. And I thought of Satsuru Maharaj, who Prabhupada would chastise, more than some of his other leaders, because he knew that he was advanced enough and that he would take it as a blessing. Exactly because, he cares, he's concerned. And that's I guess it's embodied in Vaisheshika's immortal phrase, I live to be corrected. I live to be corrected. Just try to embrace that idea, because after all, we're kind of wend our way through the process of devotional service, but there's some of these things we don't know, mistakes we make, unintentional offenses. So when someone takes the trouble to correct us, and that was Prabhupada's whole mission. He came because he cared, and he was giving the books out, and so much chastisement in the books, so much direction and challenge, because that was his mercy overflowing, so much sacrifice, just so that he could present, he could sit in that loft in the Bowery and find some receptive souls who would hear his message, and out of them, a few would become serious and start, and that's planting the seed. I wasn't there in the Bowery, but I did get the message. Yeah, so that's an advanced position to welcome the chastisement, which is done, should be done with maybe sternness, but with love, which it is, and then that's how we advance, because it's not like otherwise you go off into the land of where whatever you want to do you can do it, as long this is like the bogus gurus and yogis, don't for regular people, don't worry about that. You just come and you chant with us, or you do this, you go, and everything will be fine, and then you pay my fee. It's a cheating process. So the non-cheating part is the Prabhupada didn't budge on those four regular principles, and probably a lot of people said, "Oh, no way!" Like that famous story Maharaj told about, was it in Italy, where they were having nice big meetings and people were coming, and then they had someone who actually could speak Italian come, and then everyone left. What did you say? What did you say? Well, I just told them about the four regular principles, and they actually understood it because it's in Italian. Okay. So we don't want to water down the process. So I mean, it's the introductory lecture. That's one thing, but still, the books, you give them the book, and it's as it is, So we should accept it as it is and be thankful.
And then the text talks about the
Hare Krishna.
Oh, one second, Prabhu.
I'll just to follow up, the poor and the ugly. Amogalila Prabhu, he was born with beauty and wealth and power. Like but he's used that in all Krishna's service, and he's on the altar. It's very wonderful how he's offered those positive attributes for Krishna. But let's say you're born poor.
He wants to borrow some money from you. That's what he's saying.
Or maybe his father can help me with some issues I have with my veins.
Okay.
Yeah. What if you're poor and ugly? So if you're poor and ugly, even the Bhagavatam says you're loved by your family until you don't have any money, right? So if you're born poor and ugly, but you have a desire to serve, but that's not that attractive. So what do you do if you're poor and ugly, but you have something you want to offer, but no one wants to reciprocate because you're poor and ugly?
You have to be intelligent enough and able to chant, and then if you chant enough, you won't be so ugly. And poor, everyone else is poor too, The point is, it's an internal thing. I mean, we all have our own karma, and some people are more qualified than others in materially, But if you bring whatever you have, and give, Krishna looks at the percentage, right, that you give. You're looking at the percentage. Patam Pusham Bolantoyam. I heard a lecture Prabhupada saying, there's so many, people who retire to Vrindavan, wealthy industrialists. They leave all their money to their wife and kids, they come to Vrindavan, and they just ask their wives to send them a couple of 100 rupees a month for prasadam, and then I'll be fine. Krishna's intelligent. He knows. No, he's looking. He sees what you're holding back more than even what you're giving.
Intelligent, and you come to Vrindavan and you have your beads. And that's it.
Yeah, that's it. You have your beads. So the point is that whatever we have to give. If we're poor and ugly, that's all right. We can still wash the pots, and sincerely, and make advancement. And then you don't. The ugliness is an external thing, but poor, you're the richest person because you have Krishna. You have the holy name. All right, we have to Vijay Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Dravida Prabhu. Thank you very much. You're very kind. Dandavat Pranams. Prabhu, I have a question, but Maitreya Prabhu is here. Maybe he wants to go first.
Oh, thank you. Actually, I just wanted to say thank you, Dravida Prabhu, for a nice philosophical class and for recapping the Leela, which feels very merciful. It makes the class into like a sumptuous feast. The Bhagavatam is such a nice combination of philosophy and lessons. And the eternal Leela, which after all, the whole point of all the philosophy and understanding is to enter into the Nitya Leela, which is, no one's instructing the gopis in philosophy. And also the nice point that the most advanced devotees don't feel like they're so advanced. They feel humble. Even Srimati Radharani is thinking, this new bhakta, he's performing such nice service, let me offer that to Krishna. So anyway, thank you very much.
Haribol, Vijay. Always nice to hear you. Vijay, Krishna, you're on.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but you have to speak.
I'm just yes. If I may ask, Dravida Prabhu, can you read the last sentence of the purport again?
I sure can. Therefore, either in opulence or in distress, we are not independent. Everything is dependent on the sweet will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yes, exactly. Thank you very much. You're most kind. Prabhu, based on this quote, my burning question is, if everything is dependent on the sweet will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, why does Lord Krishna allows us to have minute independence? That is my question.
Yes, because without that minute independence, there's no question of love. Love must be freely given. I've quoted this before, and you can remember this, right? Write it down. Prabhupada said one time, Krishna does not want us to love him at the point of a revolver. That's not love. In other words, that's a risk he takes, because he wants to engage in his wonderful Leela with uncounted friends and parents and lovers and everything in the spiritual world. So that's only meaningful if they're freely giving that love, and that means they must have some independence. So that's why, and when we misuse it, then we know what the result is. We've been here ever since. But we also, in the human form, have the brain power, and if we come in the right association, to use that independence for doing that which will take us back to Godhead. So that's the intelligent thing to do. We have that minute independence, and that's why all of these books, everything is directed toward human beings, And I'll end with this. What is it? God. Oh, I forget. What's the one about? Turnam yuteta napate mrityu. How's it start? Labdva. Labdva sudurnam abibam idam bahusam babande manushimarta damanichamapiya dira. Turnam yuteta napate mrityu yava nikshaya saya vishayakal sarvataksya. That you've attained, after many, many births, this rare human form of life, which, like all forms, is temporary, but it has one special quality. But some manushim artadam. This artadam is the svarta I mentioned before. Is the ultimate goal of life, going back to God. It can bestow upon you, if you use it correctly, the ultimate goal of life, liberation from this nightmare of material world and going back to God. But like all forms, it's temporary. Therefore, don't waste any time. Turnam, immediately, without wasting. Turnam yateta, strive. Strive, and because death is on your shoulder. Anumritya yavat. For the nikshaya, the ultimate good, this real svarta of going back. Because you've tasted all this vishaya in every other form of life. You're wasting your time and you're creating great suffering for yourself. So strive for Krishna consciousness, which will give the blessing of seeing that vishaya as not only a waste of time, but abominable, and you would spite on it, as Prabhupada said. You spit on it. The things you're so passionate to do, you see, it's not just a waste of time. I have no attraction. It's this horrible thing. Because you're becoming attracted to Krishna. So there's always a call. You have free will, a human being. Use it properly, associate with the right persons, the right books, everything, and make this life successful. That's it, Vijay Krishna Babu.
Dravida Prabhu, again, if I may say it, and as to be expected, very helpful. Again, outstanding answer to my question. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.